I think we can start now.
We can start? Okay, we sure.
Yeah, we're streaming live for YouTube as well.
Will you do an introduction, Trevor?
Excuse me?
Will you be doing an introduction?
I think you can just do like a short self-introduction.
Oh, okay. You won't be introducing me. Okay.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Weerada, and you'll find out more about me in just a bit. But before we start, I wanted to ask, how many people here have tried to learn a new language, or are learning a new language at the moment? And how many of you, for example, have tried to learn a language using an app? There's quite a few famous apps going on around right now. And how many of you have actually ended up dropping off and never finishing your lesson as planned? That's right. Actually, with language learning solutions, there's a very high dropout rate at the moment of at least 90%. On the other hand, especially during lockdown, for example, how many of you actually end up watching more TV and more content online than ever before? Did you know that the average person spent at least 6 hours in front of their screen during lockdown, at the height of the lockdown? Now imagine if all that time watching content online, you could also be learning a new language at the same time. How easy is that? So I'm Weerada. I'm from a company called FilmDoo. We're a game-based edutainment platform that makes it easy and fun to teach and learn languages through engaging film. So this is the problem that we're trying to solve, really, which actually with language learning, especially, there's a very high dropout rate of at least 90%. And that's because current language learning solutions are quite tedious, boring. They rely on flashcards, repetitive games and exercises. And frankly, the teaching methods are quite outdated. And that's why we're in a position to use films and video to help with this problem. This is a quick snapshot of the online language learning landscape. Many of you might be familiar with some of these names. We have, of course, mobile apps, we have online courses, online lessons, language social network where you can meet language exchange partner. But the last group is particularly quite interesting because they are companies which use videos for language learning in particular. And you can see that they have a lot of users. You know, you have 4 million users for VoiceTube, at least 8 million users for FluentNew, for example. So it shows that there's a real interest and real genuine need to learn languages from using audiovisual content, especially films and video. But where these companies come from is that a lot of them don't already have an existing large and powerful international film catalog online. And that's where FilmDoo comes from. Into the picture. So yes, this is where I was starting off earlier, and that is actually a lot of current language learning solutions. If they do use videos, unfortunately, they tend to use illegal content, or they use a lot of free videos already out there, of which are low quality. They may use trailers, for example, or they end up creating their own film, like, you know, with actors, such as, you know, Are You Waiting for a Bus, for example? But those actors are just not very natural, especially for language learning. But what's interesting is that in a survey that Doceba did recently, they actually found that 81.6% of the people are expected to increase their use of films and video for language learning. So there's a real genuine interest there to use videos and film. So a little bit about me before I come into FilmDoo. So who am I? I'm obviously Thai, and that's why I'm here. Very excited to be part of the Entrepreneurship Work Week. FilmDoo is an extension of who I am. So it's uniting and combining the three things that I'm most passionate about, which is films, language learning, and technology. Obviously, FilmDoo means to watch or see a film in Thai as well, as many of you would know. And by having had the opportunity to live abroad, I actually grew up in 11 countries across 5 continents. I knew there was a whole world of film outside of Hollywood. But more importantly, I discovered the power of film. So the power of film to connect people around the world, the power of film to create empathy and understanding for other cultures, and most of all, to help you learn languages. And of course, film is a powerful medium that can help you learn languages. So this is FilmDoo as a quick snapshot. So we actually started as a movie streaming platform in 2015. We now have one of the world's biggest international film catalog online. So what you can see here very quickly is that obviously we have a very strong collection by language and by country. So we now have a very strong catalog by languages from French, Japanese, growing our Thai collection, for example. We also have English language films. This is what I mentioned earlier, which is that films have this power. Sorry. Ted Hope, who's a famous film producer of the film 21 Grams, he said this better than me. So movies have a unique capacity to create empathy for people and actions we don't know or have not experienced. And that is why film is the best immersion and inclusion technique for language learning. And why is that? Because one, by being able to create empathy, evoke emotions, film is relatable. And that's why when you're watching a film, many people cry, many people hit them a lot harder. It's because they can relate to that content. It touches them more. Film is a powerful medium that actually uses so many senses: music, sense, thought, sight, and it also evokes memories. That's really powerful. It also actually is entertaining. It's a film. It's a fun and modern way to learn. Students can have a positive experience while they're learning. I mentioned they evoke emotions. They often have a message that lasts for a long time, so it stays on, makes the audience come back to that film days, weeks, sometimes even years after, or forever. Films also create a talking point. So, especially for students who are learning languages, after they watch a film or a scene of a film, having that opportunity to discuss is quite interesting. And actually, in language learning, there's often a lot of opportunities to meet other people, language meetups, language exchanges. But actually, after a while, you run out of topics to talk to each other quite fast. How many times can you say, where are you from? What are you studying? What do you do? But if that group shared an experience of watching a film, then you can have interesting topics to talk about as well. And most of all, a film is engaging. This is the same slide, but goes into a little bit more detail into just specifically what is it about film that helps with language learning. So, for example, a film can really provide cultural context and culture, and obviously cultural awareness. I mean, after all, when you're learning a language and you're learning, a bunch of flashcards, a vocabulary and grammar point, it doesn't mean much if it's out of context, and that's the reason why you forget a lot of vocabulary, you forget a lot of grammar, because you cannot see and hear and understand how it's spoken. In fact, to become fluent, you actually need to understand how that language is used in its native context. And of course, the ability to understand how language is actually spoken, because sometimes that word can be used in a totally different context, in a dialect, in a slang, for example. But most importantly, learning a language is also through film is also natural. That's the way how children learn, right? They absorb a lot of input. They hear the language every day. It's immersive. So actually having that regular immersion with films and also of course videos is key. It's part of language learning and having success in language learning. This is an interesting quote that I found, which could be interesting. Cindy Levine, who's a leading pedagogic and linguistic expert, she actually said humankind learned reading itself from moving pictures. These cave paintings of animals running, hunters hunting, illustrated for the children, and women living in sheltered caves, what was happening inside. From the pictures came pictographs, And actually from these pictographs then came the alphabet. So it was actually the pictures that inspired our writing system in the first place. So I talked about cultural context, and that is absolutely very key. This is also a really interesting quote. So Will Sart, who's the managing partner of Indie Translation, he said it well. Learning a language without the cultural framework in which it exists is like cooking ethnic food without the spices of the region. You simply will be removed all the flavor from the languages. And that's right. Learning a language just on an app or from a textbook without appreciating how it's spoken, the people that speak it, the cultural context in which it was used, it's difficult for you to achieve that level of fluency and understanding. But films can do that. Authentic films can give you that cultural context and social context as well. This is a really interesting. So let's go into the theory a little bit more. So Stephen Krashen is a famous professor of linguistics and education from the University of South California. He studied linguistics very deeply, and a study about 30 years ago, he came to this conclusion, that we acquire language in one way and only one way. When we get comprehensible input in a low anxiety environment. So what does he mean by that? So what he's actually trying to say in this study that he found was that actually language learners, if all they did was, if they didn't attend language classes, didn't attend formal language classes, but all they did was actually receive input every day, just as the way as children do, hearing some dialogue, hearing films and videos, hearing radio, little by little, they will actually learn a language faster than if they actually went into a formal language classroom and studied it rigorously. Because it's, in his study, it's more natural. Now, his research was, of course, done 30 years ago. So actually modern research has been updated a little bit more. And obviously, they've now found that it's actually a bit of a blend. You need formal language class as well, because obviously the formal language learning has updated. It's become more modern. There's better techniques now and better teaching techniques, but the importance of comprehensible input is still there. And here's another quote from Professor Krashen again, that the best methods are therefore those that supply comprehensible input in low anxiety situations, containing messages that students really want to hear. These methods do not force early production in the second language, but allow students to produce when they are ready, recognizing that improvement comes from supplying communicative and comprehensible input, and not from forcing and correcting production. So this quote is key, because it's actually saying that the best way to learn a language is when students are in a low anxiety environment, that they're not always having tests, they're not always putting under pressure, they're not always having to be marked and assessed, but actually in their natural environment, where there's a positive atmosphere and positive learning environment, in a low anxiety environment, they can learn that language well. And that's why this is the heart of what FilmDoo does, actually, because we are using films, entertainment, we are using games as well, a game-based approach. So that is to bring on the low anxiety environment that really helps a language learner to acquire the language naturally and in an easier and fun way at the same time. So a little bit about us. We have thousands of films around the world in 35 countries. So how we came into language learning was actually from our own audience. Around last summer, we started to notice that over 80% of our users were coming from language-related searches. So we ran a survey to our users, of which over 70% told us that the number one reason they're watching a film on FilmDoo is they are learning a foreign language. So we saw this opportunity to really use the films and the platform we have to expand into language learning. And we've gone on to build an innovative layer of edtech that now sits on top of our film and can turn any film and video into an interactive lesson. And why is this great? Because actually, learning languages with film is hot right now. There's a lot of articles, there's a lot of interest. People are now really trying to make the most of learning languages through content, and there's a lot of successful stories and cases out there. So this is really exciting, and we're in a position to help with this with the great catalog that we already have. So actually, how FilmDoo came about and where we sit is actually at this intersection of using films, games, and AI all coming together to make learning fun and effective. And at the heart of what we do, as I mentioned, is actually to provide students with a low anxiety environment that really helps with language learning, language acquisition. Actually, this is even more important than ever, because as overnight, students in schools, universities, language schools have all needed to go online because of COVID. The need to find a solution for a cost-effective way to help students learn languages online has never been higher. So how can we help students to be more engaged as they spend hours and hours in front of the screen, for example? As we speak, 3 billion people are actually learning a foreign language, of which over 60% learning English. And the great thing is, FilmDoo is also well positioned to help serve, because we have a lot of English films as well. Language learning is actually a 60 billion market. And of course, expanding into EdTech is great, because EdTech is a 350 billion global market. So here we are. So today at FilmDoo.academy, you can see the first version of our Edutainment language learning platform. We are actually the world's first edutainment platform to combine language learning with access to a powerful and extensive international film catalog online. Learning languages has never been more enjoyable. We've developed some pretty innovative tools, for example, where multiple students can watch a film at the same time and play a game on their second screen. They can test their knowledge, all of which keeps the student engaged, having fun, and in a low anxiety environment. And of course, we have some interesting technology that can also help with personalized learning. For example, we have an AI that can help recommend films based on your language level. And again, getting that recommendation specific to you also helps with language learning, because you can stay motivated and you're learning at the right level, you're getting content that's of interest to you, and it keeps you engaged and interested. So I'm just going to show 2 short videos just to bring it to life a little bit, because often people ask, okay, this is great, so but how can you learn languages through film? How can you play games over a film video? So let's see 2 little videos. The first video is an example of how language tutors are currently using FilmDoo's entertainment platform and movies in their language classes. So let's
salir de la casa. No tenemos dinero. Lo siento.
video. And the second video is actually showing the FilmDoo Edutainment tool itself, and how easy it is for language teachers and language schools to turn any film and video into an interactive lesson.
It's a very interactive.
It allows you to engage with the students.
Allows the teacher to connect and bond with the students. I really liked it, and I still use it. I wish that in the future I can use it with all of my students.
If you haven't tried it out, I think you should.
Back to the presentation. So I hope that helped bring that to life a little bit more, so you can see how students are playing games and learning over a film. So that was the teacher tool, and you could see the course authoring tool. And of course, this is just just some of the many interesting technologies that we have now developed over our film, so that to improve language learning specifically. And this is the AI that I mentioned, but I can recommend films based on a student's language level and interest, which is really proprietary to what we're doing. So actually, for example, what we're doing is actually analyzing at least 27 different variables. For example, based on the film, we can look at how fast the dialogue is, the number of adverbs in a sentence or in a scene, the number of synonyms in the scene, and we can use all these example variables to rank a film based on language level, or what we perceive to be the difficulty level of the interest. So some really interesting things to really help with language learning. I mentioned this earlier, actually, but with current language learning solutions, most of them don't take a learner all the way to fluency and real-world usability. And that's because they don't provide that real-world context, real-world usability, and frequent immersion. But the great thing about using films is that you can take a learner all the way to serious proficiency and learning level. And that's great because, if you're a serious language learner, if you're a diplomat, I know there's many in Thailand, you're working for an international organization, you're an academic, or you're a linguist specifically studying language learning, then you need to have a solution for serious language learning. These are some of the language tutors who's currently using the FilmDoo language learning platform. Feedback has been great, actually. Both for both teachers and students. Teachers say they're having so much, students say they're having so much fun, and they can't wait to for their next class. With tutors, they say it's great to have such a versatile tool that they can use to create homework and at the same time turn into a class game. For teachers, actually, the ability to access thousands of hours of content that they can turn into teaching material is gold, and they really value that. So where are we now? FilmDoo is actually really working with a lot of language institutions, some of them the world's largest institution. And specifically in Thailand, we are very much interested in talking to schools, international schools in Thailand, corporate training providers who are, for example, teaching English or Chinese, to partner with, to do pilots with as well. The key selling point is that FilmDoo is not trying to replace existing solutions. So we're not trying to replace language teachers or language schools, but we're actually offering a complementary service. So actually these B2B educational institutions, they can actually use FilmDoo movies, games, and our platform to improve their own offerings for their students, to attract more students, as well as to retain those students. So these are some of the pilots that's currently taking place. As you can see, we have a very strong focus in Thailand and in the Southeast Asia as well. The thing that is happening is that times have changed. People are now, many children now are born native, actually. Mobile content, mobile video is all they know. So actually what we're doing is we're meeting a lot of learners now in where they are spending a lot of their time, which is watching films, watching videos online. Learners now expect to be entertained, and viewers now expect to learn something. So we're fundamentally at a new movement. And as I call it, the edutainment revolution has arrived. The way we learn and connect to the world has fundamentally changed. And so, especially with language learning and language teaching, the way we help students learn has also changed. And that's why actually the use of films and videos, as I have mentioned, both from a theoretical side, but how society is evolving has also changed. And films are well placed to help language learning and language acquisition. Thank you. And I'd love to take some questions now. Does anyone have some questions? I would like to learn a little bit more. Trevor, are you learning a language?
Unfortunately, no. I've tried to learn Thai. It's been so what's to say, difficult for me.
Yeah.
It's been a bit different. It's not like you know, the way they write the characters, and I tried Chinese as well when I was in school, but yeah, even that was a bit difficult for me because I'm not used to all the characters and the way they write stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So. No, but like, exactly. And why was that? Was it because you were anxious all the time? You feeling you have to achieve something, or that's really fundamentally the heart of what we're trying to do. Is a lot of people learn languages in school, in university. Some even go all the way to university, but they never take it to the point where they can actually even converse in the language, right?
Yes.
They learn it, and they might even get good grades. And actually, that was me. I learned a lot of French at that school, and I even got okay grades. But then after that, it just never stayed, right? It's just like I was learning something. It was in the short-term memory, and then just to pass that. And after that, you don't retain. And there's a lot of theories. There's another theory as well that support language learning using films. Is actually the focus and diffuse mode as well. So for example, the best way to learn a language is actually when you're in a diffuse thinking. You're not such in a high focus mode, but you're diffuse, so you can have a bit more relaxed. Your thoughts can wander, your neural connections can have indirect connections. And like when you're not in a pressure focus environment, when being in a diffuse environment allows you to absorb information, to make connections, to make relationship a bit more naturally, take your time, and it's better for long-term memory retention, long-term understanding, and of course, long-term language acquisition. So that's the theoretical side as well as why we're using films for language learning.
Very interesting.
Sure. I'd love to pass it to the audience if anyone has any questions. I would be interested to tell us your experience in learning languages, or if you've tried using films and video. Do you normally have a Q&A at the session? I thought it would be interesting, that's why.
Normally, but at the moment, let me see if there's any questions
Perhaps
on YouTube. But it doesn't look like we have any questions.
Yeah, sure. If there's any questions, that would be good. I think the participants can lift their hand maybe if they were to speak or say something. I think you can do that with the reactions, yeah. But did you have any questions, Trevor, when you saw the presentation that I talked about the theory of using film and what we're trying to do at FilmDoo? Do you have any questions yourself?
I think my real question is how, for someone, for example, that really wants to, how long does it take to learn a language this way? Because, for example, I'm really trying to learn Thai, but it's mostly for work, and I don't necessarily want to spend a year, 2 years, trying to learn the basics.
Yeah.
But with if you're learning, for example, through movies, I don't. Is there any? There isn't any structure. Basically, I think so. You're just learning the words as you hear them from the characters, right? So how long does it really take to learn a language this way?
Yeah, so I think the main thing to, as I mentioned, is we're actually not teaching a grammar and vocabulary from day one. So FilmDoo is actually a complementary tool. So it allows you to practice in your own time outside of class. You know, when you have some time waiting for a bus, for example. So we do still recommend that you use with a language teacher or language school, and this is a complementary tool. But what I can say is that learning by films and video does help accelerate language acquisition. So for example, if it might have taken 2 years to reach intermediate level, potentially you could reach it in 1 year, for example. And I'm talking about my experience. I actually had the opportunity to live in France, in Paris, in 2017 to 2018. Yeah. And actually, this is where the genesis for FilmDoo expanding to language learning came as well. So we were invited by the French government to open up an office in Paris because of what we do to help promote French films internationally. And of course, I had to learn French when I moved there. But like I said, I did learn French years ago, but when I arrived there, it was non-existent. But when I went there, I would say my level was not quite beginning, elementary maybe. But in a year, I actually got up to intermediate, medium intermediate level, not, which I think if I was still just only attending classes once or twice a week or the traditional way, I would have never had that acceleration, right? But because I was actually now every day hearing more input, watching films, taking lessons twice a week, an hour lesson, but it's the acceleration. So to answer your question is, Trevor, first of all, it depends on the level you want to get to. Are you talking from, I want to finish my beginner's class, or do I want to go to intermediate? But films will have help to accelerate it, and I think up to 2 or 3 times that acceleration as well. I think we have a language.
It's more of a,
sorry, Trevor. Yeah.
I'm saying, so it's better if you use, for example, FilmDoo as a complement to your language learning, basically traditional language learning, so you can learn a bit faster this way.
That's right. So the basic, like the grammar, vocabulary, tenses. You learn what you call the structure. So we learn the more structure piece. At the moment, FilmDoo doesn't yet have a conversation in the tool itself. However, what a lot of the independent language tutors do, and then also the language schools do, is they allow film as a talking point. So in a group class, you might remember the first video. So before the class start, they might highlight a few vocabulary to keep your eye out on, a few tenses that might be used. They watch a film, so they actually see how that language is used, that word is used, and then they have a discussion. So in the online group, the students will be able to talk about their film, reuse the vocabulary, and that's where the talking practice comes in. So in reality, learning language is not just hearing, but it's the ability to also to speak or have confidence in a safe environment to use that language. But actually, in the roadmap, what FilmDoo is looking to build also in the future, for example, is interesting tools where students can also do a voiceover or dub over a film scene, for example, and we can produce that into games. So it's in the roadwork. We will be expanding basically beyond just listening into other ways that students can be encouraged to engage with language learning as well. I think we have a question from the audience, and the question is, what are the most popular languages at FilmDoo? This is interesting. So as I mentioned, we actually started as a platform for international films. So obviously international meaning helping people to discover films around the world. So our entertainment side of the business, we were focused a bit more on French, Spanish, Japanese, Chinese. But actually for language learning, the language that has interest, has had the most interest is actually English. Because actually, if you watch English movies or English films online, you will see FilmDoo ranks quite high on Google. And we also have a really big English language film catalog with short films, documentaries, activities for language learning. So we are quite well positioned to help people in Asia also learn English using films. But of course, other languages are Chinese as well. We have a Chinese speaker in the team. Chinese is a strong focus for us. French and Spanish. There's a big interest for learning Spanish in the US at the moment. Actually, many US schools are bilingual already. But of course, we're also expanding to other languages, looking at Japanese, looking at German, for example.
Yeah, I also thought it was interesting that you referenced Friends, the TV show, as basically one of the reasons why some of these famous people like Jurgen Klopp learned English.
Yeah.
Because the other day I was driving to football practice as well with a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he was playing Friends in his car, the TV show. And he said, I love this show so much because if it wasn't for this show, I would not be in Thailand. He's Turkish. And he says this show is the only reason why he actually learned English.
Really? Wow.
He didn't go to school. Yeah, he didn't go to like language school or anything like that, but he used to watch Friends a lot. And his English became he learned from the show, and he became better and better as he tried to kind of speak the way they speak, say some of the stuff they say. And yeah, he got me into watching Friends as well. So it's quite interesting that you reference that show.
Yeah, you saw that the article, right? Why language learning is hot. Yeah.
So what are the most popular shows? Like the most popular shows that you can find on FilmDoo. Basically something similar to French in terms of popularity.
Yeah, so actually we don't do series because the name FilmDoo, not series do. At least that's where we started, because obviously the original vision is to help independent international filmmakers get additional distribution as well as distribution outside the country that they otherwise wouldn't get off. So that's where we started from films. Actually, for language learning, actually even short film is good, because as you can appreciate when you're learning, being able to watch something a little every day is better. It's good, right? So actually with our language learning platform, we actually focusing a little bit more on short films, and obviously in the weekends when people have a bit more time, they can obviously watch the longer feature film. So we don't have a series right now, but we have many award-winning films, for example, in French, in Chinese, in English as well. And obviously, we can also recommend films. So if there's a particular genre you're interested in, we have a chat function that can always recommend films that you're interested in. But potentially we're open to expanding into series. So as the company grows, so we can look into doing that. And obviously series, I think, has you relate to that character because you see them so more often. So they become like, if you watch Friends, you kind of feel like, oh, you're one of you, right? So again, it's creating that emotional connection. So you're motivated to understand those characters because you have a personal relationship with them over time as well. Yeah. Yeah, great. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Anyone else?
I think we don't have any more questions. Is there anything else you would like to share before we close off?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I'm a Thai founder. A little bit. Well, I'm in the UK right now because I can't go back. But normally, I spend a lot more time in Thailand or with Southeast Asia. I'm very excited with FilmDoo language learning. And of course, we are looking to do a lot more in Thailand and in Southeast Asia. So we are, if you're interested in finding out more, if you are a language school, if you are a corporate language training provider, if you are an university, or if you're a parent, we're just interested to talk to you. You know, we're actively looking for organizations that would be interested to work with us. We are currently actively looking for people who are interested in running pilots to see how we could help improve learning outcomes and learning effectiveness with your students. So, you know, drop me an email. My email is WPS, W paper sugar at FilmDoo, FILMDOO.com. You can drop me an email or add me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. My name is Weerada, WEERADA. I think if you type Weerada and FilmDoo on LinkedIn, you'll be able to find me. So please drop me an email, add me on LinkedIn, and get in touch. Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, you know, we'd love to talk to you, especially, you know, language schools, educational institutions, corporate learning, teaching, training providers in Thailand, in Southeast Asia. So we're actively looking for partners at the moment as we expand and set up in Southeast Asia.
Right. Thank you so much for your time, Weerada. I'm sure we all learned a lot, and we'll definitely be using FilmDoo to improve our language skills.
Yeah, so I think the most important message or lasting message I would like to leave is that a lot of people are scared of learning languages, right? They were like, it takes them back to school where it's like, again, it's a society environment, like, oh, I have to pass an exam, or a lot of people say, oh, I can't learn a language, especially, don't tell anyone, but a lot of English people don't like learning languages. I have a lot of English friends, and they just get scared, and it's like in their mindset. But the most important step first is to have familiarity, to not have fear, right? And when you're engaging, like children, you know, you even though they don't understand everything, but by being immersed in that language a bit more often, you know, getting used to the characters, if it's a series or a cartoon, they have a relationship. So the first step is to remove that fear, remove that mindset, and half the battle is won. Once you remove that, you become more confident, you become more easygoing, you can have fun, you can have a positive environment, you can slowly absorb the input from the language, and that is the way to successful language learning and long-term language acquisition. So the first step is just to overcome that fear, have fun, be in a positive environment, in a low anxiety environment, and that's the key to learning languages. So there's nothing you have to be scared of. You know, everyone can learn a language, second, third, fourth language. Yeah. And it starts today, right? Yeah. Thank you. Sawadee ka, everyone.
Thank you.